Hey everybody, Matt Williams Golf. Well, I'm here today to review a new iron today, and it's going to be the Srixon ZX5. Now, they just released the ZX7 and the ZX5, and hopefully in another review I'll do the ZX7 at another time. But for this review, I'm just going to review the ZX5. I think this will be an iron that has a little bit broader appeal to a broader range of golfers than the ZX7. So we're going to be doing the ZX5 today. I'm excited about this because all you hear, especially in 2021, are just amazing things about the entire run and line of Srixon golf clubs, from the driver all the way down through their irons. So really excited to test this out and see how this goes. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to review three clubs, as I always do: the pitching wedge, the 7-iron, and also the 5-iron. And we're going to stack those numbers up against the numbers I'm accustomed to hitting right now with my current irons. And we're going to see how these do, how they play, talk about feel and design and all these different things, and also ultimately talk about who these clubs are ultimately designed for. So let's dive right in. We're going to start with the pitching wedge and then move on to the 7-iron and 5-iron, but we'll start with the pitching wedge first. So let's get to it. One thing I will mention before we dive into this review, if you haven't already, make sure you smash that subscribe button, click that bell notifications, maybe leave a comment below if you've been considering the Srixon ZX5 irons. Let's get right into it though. Okay, so starting with the pitching wedge, currently with my current irons, which if you've watched a previous club review, I use the TaylorMade RSI2s, and so I'm very, very close to buying my next set of irons. Could the ZX5 irons be the iron I choose? Perhaps. Right now, the leaders in the clubhouse for me are the TaylorMade P770, and I won't lie, the Titleist T200 is in the running as well. But I've got a very open mind about the Srixon ZX5. We'll talk about design and everything at the end, but these are designed to have a lot of forgiveness immediately as I put it down behind the ball. It is a chunkier iron. It's certainly got quite a thicker sole, thicker top line, but it's not disgustingly gross cavity back. It's not overly huge. It actually doesn't have a whole lot of offset for being a relatively thick cavity back iron. So let's go ahead and take our first swing with this. I haven't swung any with these, so let's see how this performs. Well, it goes straight. Boy, it falls right out of the sky. That was my first swing, not really warm, but it was an okay shot. It was fine. Went dead straight. 123 carry, 131 total. Spin rate was only 4,100 RPM. So nothing real great about that at all, actually. Height of 94 feet. I wouldn't say these are weak lofted. I wouldn't say they're strong lofted. They're not quite the new traditional. We'll be talking about the loft here in a little bit. I'm accustomed right now with my RSI2s. I forgot to mention this. Pitching wedge, my normal carry is around 133. So this was considerably shorter, but that's not surprising given that was my first swing. Wow, that one just flew to the sky. Caught that one pretty clean. Flew pretty well. 133 carry. 141 total. All right. So height of 110 and spin rate of 3,400 RPM, which is pathetic. All the other numbers were fine, but that spin rate, yikes. I mean, this isn't that strong lofted. Flew a bit better. Let's see what the numbers say. Spin rate is really low on these so far. Now, part of that could be the player. It was 128 carry, 136 total, 105-foot apex. If you're wondering, my club head speed right now is floating around 82 miles an hour, ball speed 92. You know what's weird about this ball flight on this? it just, once it reaches its apex, it falls out of the sky quick. It's a very interesting ball flight. I'm not gonna lie, very interesting. So that one was 120 carry, 137 total. Still 3,400 RPM. Let's jump up to 7-iron. I don't see this getting better magically because I've put some decent swings on it. Not my best, but not my worst. Well, that's funny. Maybe I will hit a couple more. The spin is still pathetic. That one was a 137 carry, 144 total, ball speed 97, apex 113. So these have no problem getting up in the air, which for a sort of strong lofted cavity back, that's not surprising. Lots of manufacturers do this where they really load it up with the tungsten on the toe and low side of the iron to help a golfer, especially an average golfer, produce a really good height. All right, 7-iron. Have not swung this yet. If you've watched my other reviews, it's funny. Always takes me a few swings before I kind of find my groove with an iron. Now, in all these irons, I'm hitting the Nippon Pro Modus 3. And I'm going to tell you something. I know from past experience on testing other irons, this is not the right shaft for me. But we're not going to try and put a different shaft in here. I'm down here at Fiddler's Green, and I'm not going to make these guys go to that much trouble. I figured that out with the Mizuno JPX 921 forged. Not the right shaft on that Nippon Modus Pro. But we're going to stick with this and see what kind of results we get. All right, first swing in. Club head speed, 87. Ball spin rate, 6,100 RPM. Now that's a good spin rate for me with 7-iron. Carry was 157, total of 164. Apex 88 feet. I like to be a little higher than that, but with that spin rate, I'm okay with that. But that's not much carry, folks. I average about 168 carry with with 7-iron right now. That's a good golf swing right there. That is a good swing. And that sucker flew, I think. There we go. There we go. Funny what happens when you swing the club well. 114 ball speed. 174 carry. 189 total. Uh-oh. Spin rate, 3,300 RPM. Interesting. Perfectly dead straight. What's funny is I thought it was going to draw, but it just kind of held its line. 160 carry, 166 total. There we go. Spin rate 6,100. Apex 95 feet. Now we're talking about a profile swing that I like. Again, though, the one thing that I'm surprised by, though, this is sort of strong lofted. Can't quite recall, but I think the 7-iron is 30.5 or maybe even 31 degrees, and it's certainly thick, strong cavity back. There's stronger 7-irons out there that get all the way down to 28, 27 degrees. So this isn't that. I still, though, given how this is constructed, really expected this to fly a bit further, because I have flushed a few. And you know, we're only in the 160 to 170 range a couple of times, and even just under 160 a couple of times, which is 10 yards less than I'm used to. So let's just keep playing with this here. Do you hear I'm a little confused thus far? 160 carry, 166 total. Those are the exact same numbers I just said. 6,100 RPM. Okay, back-to-back results that are literally carbon copies of one another, exactly the same. Pretty sure that carried a little further. 115 ball speed. Wow! 3 in a row. How is this possible? 6,000, 59.71. Okay, 6,000 spin rate, 159.9 carry. So 160 carry, 167 total. That's 3 in a row that are literally all the exact same. Now, to their credit too, they're also right dead straight. So chalk one up to consistent. Wow, how much you want to bet? That's it. Is that going to be the same thing? That might be a little short. I've never seen it. This is a testing first for me. That's 4 in a row. 160 carry, 167 total, 115 ball speed, 6,300 RPM. Well, I will say this, to the ZX5 credit, it spins quite a bit well, which is interesting because that pitching wedge didn't spin at all. Maybe I just wasn't warm yet, I don't know. I just hit 4 shots that are literally the exact same characteristics. Literally the exact same. Did we make it 5 in a row? Did we make it 5 in a row? No way. What? Do it, do it, do it. 160 carry, 167 total, 6,300 RPM. 115 ball speed. That is 5 shots in a row. So that you understand my amusement here, just so you know, I'm not blown away by the numbers. The spin is really good. The carry is way less than I expected this to be, and I mean way less. This just, quite frankly, isn't that hot, if you will. When you hit the P770 from TaylorMade, which is weaker lofted than this, I get significantly better carry. The tech that's built into that makes it just hot, hot, hot. Now, what's interesting is this is a fully forged iron, but it sure doesn't sound like it. I would say that this has a lot of the same feel and characteristics to the Mizuno JPX 921 forge. And it could be because I'm hitting the same shaft, but there's a lot of similar feel and characteristics to me. A lot of. So I got to give Srixon some credit. As long as you produce a relatively similar swing, I have 5 shots in a row that are the exact same characteristics. That has never happened in my testing ever. Oh boy. Do we make it 6 in a row? Oh my. Are you serious right now? Don't tell me. Don't tell me. Well, I guess I should move on to 5-iron. That's 6 in a row. Now the ball speed was more on that. 117 ball speed, 160 carry, 166 total, 95-foot apex, 6,600 RPM. Okay, I don't want to do my summary just yet, but this is crazy consistent. Maybe perhaps the most consistent iron I've ever hit. And unlike the pitching wedge with the 7-iron, I'm getting a lot of the spin and ball height, you know, a lot of the characteristics that I would normally want. The only thing that's lacking in this is a carry. It's just not got a lot of pop to it, which is shocking. Let's move on to 7-iron, or excuse me, let's move on to 5-iron. 5-iron now. Don't know what to expect. Haven't even struck this yet. Haven't even swung a 5-iron today. Oh, who needs a warm-up? Whoa. Okay, that might have been really good. I'm going to give another feel to this. So it's fully forged. It certainly doesn't sound fully forged, but it's starting to feel pretty good. So the carry on that was 190, 205 total, 75-foot apex. That's a little lower. Ball speed 125. That sounds about right for me. So 5-iron, I normally, with my RSI 2s, carry right around 195, 196 on average. You know, get into that 210 average. So this was about 7 yards shorter. Good again. It's hard to tell down there in the rain. Yeah, that's short. 186 total. Excuse me, 186 carry, 200 total. Huh. See, I feel like I'm really focused. That's 3 now that I think I've hit really well. Yeah, folks, it's not doing it. 186 carry, 202 total, 123 ball speed. Huh. It just, and this is stronger lofted than what I currently game. Interesting. I got to run my memory back or take a look at those shots. Yeah, so those last 2 shots, almost the exact same characteristics. So let's see if we can repeat the 7-iron. I want better characteristics in this, but let's just see if we can check something up here in the consistency. You know, it's funny because the first maybe 50% of the way when it comes off the face, you're like, oh, I got it good. Huh, here we go. Repeat of the 7-iron. And what I mean by that is consistent numbers again. 185 carry, 201 total, 123 ball speed. And these are all dead straight. My shot dispersion in terms of right to left shot dispersion is wonderful. Something I'll say, and I haven't done it yet with the 5-iron, but there were a couple 7-iron shots that I hit errant, and I'm not going to put in the video because I don't think they're a real accurate representation of what the club can do. But what I will say is these don't appear to be that forgiving, and they're built the way the face and the milling behind the face and the tungsten down low, they're built to be forgiving. I don't find these to be as forgiving as some irons that I've tested by any means. So I'll be done with the 5-iron here in just a second, and then we'll do our full summary. But I'm going to tell you, yeah, 185 carry, 185 carry, 205 total. Okay. There is something about this ball flight on the Srixon that is different than just about any iron I've tested. And I'm wondering how much of that is shaft related. I really wish, folks, I had the setup, and I don't, compared to some club reviewers out there. I really wish I had the setup where I could just go through a whole bunch of different shafts when I'm testing an iron, but I can't. I've got to basically, I'm going basically what came from the manufacturer. This Nippon shaft isn't right for me. I just know it. With my swing, flawed as it might be, this is not the right shaft for me. And whether it's the iron or the shaft, I'm seeing results that I've seen before where the ball just takes off, it's a good swing, the contact was great, but man, does it just, whatever the swing profile is, it just falls out of the sky fast. It happened with the pitching wedge, happened with the 7-iron, and now I see it happening again with the 5-iron. Let's see what we can do here with 1 or 2 more. Okay, that needs no forgiveness. I'll bet you right now, same numbers. 185 carry, 202 total. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Sounds familiar. 125 club head speed. One more. I get where this is at. I'll bet you money. Yep. Yeah, 186 and 201. Same thing. All right, let's do our summary of the Srixon ZX5. All right, so summary, Srixon ZX5. Let's start going through some boxes. I summarized a little bit briefly as I was swinging this thing. First of all, let's start, as I always do, with looks. Oh my goodness, in terms of the looks category, I think this thing is sexy. I wouldn't necessarily say that looks have been Srixon's strengths in the past, but they certainly nailed it out of the park on this one. Now, as I pointed out before, it does have a pretty thick sole, a fairly thick top line. It is a fairly chunky iron. But that they've done so much with the design to make it look sleeker than I think it actually is. And I just love the crisp lines on it. I love that it's mostly all stainless or polished. It's a fully forged head. I love the looks of it. I think in the looks category, they nailed it out of the ballpark. Now, a couple things from a design standpoint. They've got this notch out in the heel. One other interesting thing in the sole is they've got, I think they call it the V sole, which is designed to help it kind of penetrate through different lies and different types of lies that you might have, different types of grass that you might have and find yourself in. You can see where there's tungsten been inserted in the sole, again with it being sort of strong lofted, not really strong lofted, but a little bit. It's really meant to help kind of be designed for two things. Number one, this is meant to help lower that CG, so that you can get better launch on this iron, given the characteristics of it. And also with the milling behind the face and the other design of this, it's also meant to really help be a forgiving iron. Now, to that forgiveness end, did I find this to be a real forgiving iron? Not really. I've hit a lot of irons that were a lot more forgiving than the Srixon ZX5. So given the kind of game improvement category it would fall under, I really don't think this is really that forgiving of an iron. Not as forgiving as it should be, given the players that I believe that this iron is designed for. Another thing I'll say about this iron is it wasn't really hot. It really didn't go very far. I've hit a lot of irons, even irons that were weaker lofted than this, that flew a lot further than this. I've hit irons that were about the same exact loft that flew a lot further. Mizuno JPX 921 forged, TaylorMade P770, TaylorMade P790, even the Titleist T200 and the Titleist 300, all clubs that just went a lot further than the Srixon ZX5, and they're all clubs that fall in a similar category and playing category as this ZX5. So it really didn't hit it out of the ballpark in distance. Another thing I'll say is that ball flight. I mentioned this during the review and while I was hitting it. There's something about the ball flight. Now, again, as I said in the review, I think some of that can be shaft related, but once it reached its apex, it just died right out of the air, just crashed to the earth, which I thought was very interesting, and also probably contributed to not getting quite as much distance as I'm normally accustomed to with the iron. So I found that to be really, really interesting. One thing I have to give this some compliments though. Incredibly consistent and very consistent. Do you remember? On both the 7-iron and the 5-iron, I was hitting the same numbers more times in a row than I think I've ever hit in any iron review that I've ever done, producing the exact same results. Not 2 times, not 3 times, but 5 and 6, 7 times in a row. I've never experienced anything like that, so got to give Srixon a lot of credit. They've designed an iron that is incredibly consistent. It also is very good feeling. I will say for a forged face, it was a little louder than I thought it would be for a fully forged head, but it felt really, really good. Another thing worth mentioning is price. These Srixon ZX5s in the United States, now I say this every time, if you scour the internet and call a bunch of different retailers, you can find a bunch of different deals and pricing and everything. But these float around $1,100 US. So for Canadian dollars, for the Canadian audience, that'd be around $1,350 to almost $1,400 Canadian. In pounds, got a Great Britain following. For those of you in Great Britain, in pounds, I think that's around 850 pounds. So these aren't priced quite as high as some of the premium irons out there, but they're not the cheapest set of irons out there either. They kind of fall in this middle void there in terms of pricing. Which based on their performance I think feels appropriate. So they're not cheap, but they're not super expensive or ridiculously expensive at all. Folks, I'm having a hard time pegging where I land on these. I really like the ZX5. Who are these irons designed for? I think a lot of mid to high handicappers, certainly your mid handicappers. High handicappers, given that I didn't find this to be the most forgiving iron that I've ever played, a lot of high handicappers might not be ultimately satisfied with both the distance and also the level of forgiveness that you get from the ZX5. Look, it's a good iron. I love the Srixon brand. I'm excited. I also want to eventually do, and hopefully will do, a review of the ZX7. But ZX5, is it a contender to go ever into my bag? No, it's really not. But if somebody told me that they were buying the ZX5, I really couldn't criticize that choice, because it is a quality iron. It's a good iron. There's a lot of things I like about it. It's extremely consistent, but it's probably just not the iron for me. Well, that's going to about do it, I think, for the Srixon ZX5 irons. It's a good iron. Probably not for me, but it's a good iron. I hope in some way that this helped for you. If it did, if you were at all entertained or informed by this really informal review process, remember, I'm quite a bit less formal than a lot of the major club reviewers out there. If you found this to be helpful at all, or you like this review at all, I ask you to go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. If you aren't already a subscriber channel, go ahead and make sure you click that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications. If you've been considering the Srixon ZX5 irons, or if you've thought about getting them, or if you already have them, any thoughts that you have at all, I really ask you to go ahead and feel free to leave a comment below. Or if you have any questions on how these stack up against the other irons that I've tested, I'd be happy to try and get to as many comments as I can and answer any questions that I get, so feel free to leave anything in the comment section. Well, folks, I had a blast reviewing the Srixon ZX5s. It's been a great time with these, and I doubt I'll be hitting them again anytime soon, but they are a nice iron. Till the next iron review, there's a whole lot of golf clubs to be reviewing here in the late winter and as we move into the spring, and I'm going to be slowly chipping away and working through as many as I can, and it's an exciting time for everybody in the golf industry. So yeah, stay tuned for a lot more reviews. Thanks for watching this one. I hope it helped, and we'll see you guys on the next one.